Yeah? And yeah, chances are when you do that, you don't find it. I think it's, many of us are potentially these Chinese bamboos, but we are not giving ourselves a chance to rise to that 80-foot height. We are in a hurry. We are very quick to try and check if there's something happening. Worse still, if after a few months we don't see anything happening, we say it must be the soil, it must be the seed, it must be my luck, and we stop watering the plant and let it go. Yeah? And I think even later in life, it's a good lesson to remember that nothing of significance will happen in a hurry. Okay? And I think as many of you young people out here, when you start going out to work tomorrow, it'll be very tempting. You'll go to work, 6 months later, you'll say promotion nahi mila, and you'll move on. And then 1 year later, you'll feel, you know what, I don't like the culture here. And then you'll go to another place, another way, over there you won't like something else. You'll keep moving from one place to another. Give yourself a chance to succeed. Most times, the person coming in the way of your success is actually you, yourself. So think of the Chinese bamboo tree, and remember, perseverance will pay eventually. Okay? Winning is hard work, takes a long time, but if you persevere, if you do what's right, you'll find that you'll get there. I think the other thing that you need to do at work is to find passion. Okay? And I know there are some people here, and I know, if you're in some businesses, you think passion is slightly more rampant, but it's great fun to see somebody who's enjoying his work. Okay? And I think it's extremely important to find passion, because suddenly passion becomes this magic ingredient, which changes life. And I must tell you that I'd again go back to one of the companies I worked for, and this is again, it wasn't a company, it was a culture. So if you worked for Pepsi, you could have any car which was blue, and you'd be shot dead if you were found owning a car which was red in color. Okay? That was the rule. Now, you started hating those guys, and that was what, it was all fun and games, but that's what builds culture. I must tell you, I used to get transferred several times, and one of our transfers reached Calcutta, and, little kids going to school, after the first day in school, the son comes back home and says, you know what, Dad, bad news. Now, if you have to move cities as often and find your children changing schools so quickly, you worry about it. So, we sit the guy down and ask him, after he's settled down, taking his shoes off, and say, what's the bad news? Tell us. He says, I'm in red house. Yeah? That's what defined it for him. And I want to share another little story. So, this was in Chennai, and, those guys in the Reds, they had their office in a building on the 3rd floor of a commercial tower. And in those days, these companies would not lose an opportunity to put up their brand. So what they did was to put up a board outside the office which said, Coca-Cola, 2nd floor. Below that, one young marketing kid, okay, probably a year out of business school, said, you know what, I see an opportunity there. And he said, let me go and put up this sign which tells them where Pepsi is. Okay? Now think about it. He didn't come and say, you know what, dear sir, I would like to please kindly approve. Because if he had asked for permission, I can bet my last rupee, we wouldn't have granted the permission. Because, this has to then go to New York, get approved. Can you really do it? No, none of that. He just did what he thought was right. Because for him, that's what this company's culture was all about. So when you go out to work tomorrow, good lesson to remember. Find passion, do what your passion tells you to do. And an important line, don't ask for permission. If it goes wrong, you can always ask for forgiveness, yeah? So, so don't worry. Okay, I think success is partly about getting this Takacs mindset. It's about passion, it's about patience, it's about hard work, but it's also about teams, okay? And I want to tell you a little story about a guy called Randy Pausch, who's no more, but was a great professor. And he tells this story of wanting to become a football player for his country. Okay, as a little kid, he had a dream of playing football, and he really looked forward to this first day of coaching in school when the football coach would come. So here were all these kids running around, jumping, brand new kit, nice shoes, and finally the coach arrives. This big guy, big shoulders, he comes in, and the kids are jumping, really excited. And, they come and then they say, okay, great, let's get started. Suddenly the kids discover there's one problem. The coach is here, but there's no football. So, one kid puts his hand up and says, excuse me, coach, where's the ball? So the coach says, yeah. He says, how many players on a football field? You know, small kids do their quick math, 11 times 2. They say, 22 players. He says, right. And how many footballs on a football field? 1. So he says, yes. So today we're going to start by learning what the other 21 people will do on a football field. Because at any time, only one man has possession of the ball. Yeah? So, I think very often we all go to work wanting to be that one man with the football in our control. We all want to be the guy scoring the goal. We all want to stay, we are hoping that, you know, everybody's looking at us and saying, wow, such a good dribbler. What a good guy. We are constantly holding on to the football. Success in life is not about what you do when you have the ball. It's about how you behave when somebody else has the ball. And if you learn to help other people when they have the ball, you'll suddenly find that you are actually emerging as a winner. So good lesson to remember. Don't worry about trying to gain possession of the ball. Try and think of what you would do if you were one of the other 21 people on the football field. I must tell you a story about this guy who, you know, yeah, let's hear it for him. I mean, if there's one man who's taught this country to feel proud of itself, who's taught this country to say, you know what, we can do it, we can win, I think here's this guy who's actually done it for us. But to me, my favorite Sachin Tendulkar story is actually from a time gone by. Okay, this is really, for those of you who are cricket fans here, this goes back to his debut series, 1989, India versus Pakistan. First 3 test matches drawn. This is now the Sialkot test, okay? And it's a real green top wicket. And India batting in the second innings, staring at defeat. We are 38 for 4. Okay, and all the top 4 batsmen back in the pavilion. At the non-strikers end is Navjot Singh Sidhu, who's the guy who's telling us the story. Now, some of you might argue that Sidhu can't be telling you a story, but, you know, stranger things happen. So, Sachin Tendulkar then comes out to bat. This little kid, you know, 16, curly hair, chubby cheeks, comes out to bat. And Waqar Younis and Wasim Akram really letting it go, letting it rip on a green top wicket. And as it happens, pretty early in that innings, the ball hits Sachin through his helmet on his nose. Okay, and the guy starts bleeding. And Sidhu recalls looking at that sight, you know, and saying, you know what, I'm sure all the women watching cricket on television would have said, there must be a law to prevent, you know, young children from being exposed like this. And Tendulkar, you know, was standing over there, and Sidhu says, as I saw him, we had all heard so much about him, and I was worried that we'd have one more example of a talent just dying away because of this shot, because of getting hit like this. And several people had in the past, you know, found their careers going nowhere because of the impact that an injury can have. So Sidhu walked down to Tendulkar. Ali Irani, who was the physio, came running with his bags, and they told Sachin, you know what, Sachin? Tu retire ho ja. Retire hurt. You can come back later, because by then the wicket would have eased a bit, and, you know, the bowlers would have got tired. And, you know, I want your confidence to be intact is what he was thinking to himself. And he says, you retire hurt. Tendulkar apparently looked back at Sidhu, you know, kind of did that and said, "Main khelega." Okay? And I think those two words actually help explain what made a great talent as a batsman become truly a genius. It's this attitude, "Main khelega," I'll fight, which tells you that there is someone special out there. And I think it's an attitude that we should all try and get to ourselves. Because think about it, if Tendulkar had retired hurt at that time, no one would have said anything. You know, you get hit, you retire hurt. Can't do much about it. But here he was saying, it's not about me, it's about my team. I need to stand there, I need to fight. I need to say, "Main khelega." He stood there, he scored a 50. Sidhu, I think, hit some 90 odd, and we actually saved that game. But I think it's those two words, "Main khelega," which is really the legacy that Tendulkar leaves behind for all of us. Because if we can internalize that and tell ourselves, you know what, never mind what happens to me, I can get knocked down, I'll be hit, I can fail, but I will fight. Main khelega. And if you can tell yourself, "Main khelega," you'll probably find, you know, winning becomes easy at the end of it all. I just want to end with a simple example of what winning teams are all about. And it's also to try and tell you that, you know, some of the best lessons in life don't come to us from classics and textbooks and classrooms. Yep. They come to us from real life, okay? And this is really what I want to do. And this is an example from what happened in the streets in Mumbai. The Dahi Handi, we've all seen it happen at some stage perhaps, where we try and recreate what Lord Krishna did to try and get the makhan. And you form this human pyramid to try and get to the pot which has money. What I want to do is to share with you 5 quick lessons on what the Dahi Handi can tell you about how to build winning teams. First, it takes all sorts to make a team. A mistake that we all make is to try and find people like ourselves. We feel very comfortable. Mere jaisa hi hoga, acha hoga. Completely untrue. Look for diversity. Look for people who are very different. Bring them together and you'll have a great team. The guys at the bottom of the pyramid are these strong, fat guys. And then you have the slightly more athletic guys. And then you have a little kid who has to climb on top. The people at the bottom can think, you know what, if they were all like us, we'd be a great team. Not true. Won't happen. Next, this is a recurring theme, and I think you heard it from the Major General earlier. Don't fear failure. Okay? You know what? Look at that. You try and form a pyramid, you'll fall. You'll fall, you'll get hurt. What does that mean? They don't then fall and say, I hereby decide that I shall now go fishing from next year. I will not do any more of this Dahi Handi. They don't do that. They just go back and say, you know what? If you fall, you get up. If you fall again, get back up. All it takes to succeed is to get back up one more time. And if you can do that, you'll find that, nothing to fear, never fear failure. Third, I think it's a good lesson for those of you, and you'll all become leaders later, and I like the idea of some of you coming here 20 years later and speaking. But remember this, okay? As you climb up, you may be the guy higher up having the better view and seeing the world, and the cameras will always catch you. But remember, there are shoulders that you're standing on, okay? So you may be higher up the organization, but never, never forget the shoulders that you stand on. Fourth, I think it's a good one to remember that, these guys go around, and if you decide that I will only do what worked for the other guy. So if you are, let's say, the team from Parel and you're Parel Panthers, and you say, yaar, let's do what the other guys do, right? If the other guys go and break the pot, that's the end of it. There is no other pot that's going to come over there. So if you decide you will only copy someone else, you will only go where somebody else has gone and hope to find success, it won't happen. You've got to chart your own course. You've got to decide what you want to do, and you'll find success out of it. And finally, of course, I love this site. It's not eventually about getting that pot. It's about enjoying the ride, okay? And I think these guys are a great example of that. Somebody's a dabba wala, somebody's a postman, someone's doing some other work. They don't care. On this day, they all wear those same T-shirts. They all have their names, emblazoned across their chest. They feel proud and passionate to be out there, right? And I think it's symbolic that it's not about the destination. It's about learning to enjoy the journey. That's what will define what winning is all about for you. So really, that's all I have to say to you today. I think you've been a terrific audience. I just want to leave you with one last thought. I go back to Michelangelo, the guy who sculpted David. And he said, you know what? The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it's too low and we reach it. Okay? So aim high, guys. Fly high. Keep winning. Thank you very much.